It's 6:20. Okay, let's get into it, guys. We have quite a bit of you here now. I expect some more to join as we go on. But thanks for being early. And we will start off with a little bit of an icebreaker. I'm interested to know. We wanted to hear from you. If you could interview one athlete in the world, who would it be and why? You can drop the comments and you can also unmute your mic. I mean, well, I'll go through. I see you already unmuting and right.
Ronaldinho.
Ronaldinho. Why Ronaldinho?
I mean, the greatness, the impact, the skill, everything.
What would you ask him? Give me one question you'd ask him.
Where did it all come from?
Okay, where did it all come from? Devar, you have your hand up.
Sir, could you repeat? Because I didn't hear, because there was noise in the background.
Oh, as I was saying, if you had one athlete that you could interview in the world, if you could interview him, what would be the question you'd ask? Who would it be and what would be the question you'd ask? You can think about it. Brian, you have your hand up.
I think I would have to interview Michael Jordan just because he's so out of the public eye nowadays. You don't really see too many Michael Jordan public appearances or interviews, so I know that would be a high commodity. And I'd ask him something, because he's Michael Jordan, people are always comparing others to him, so I'd ask him things like, who reminds you the most of yourself in the NBA today or in college today? Something like that, just to get the public eye on the interview.
I love that question. All right, thanks, Brian. Khalil, you have your hand up. Go ahead. Khalil?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you had your hand up. I thought you wanted to answer the question. Or you already did?
Yes, I wanted to answer it. So I would like to interview Cristiano Ronaldo because I feel like, although I don't speak Spanish, but that would be the only challenge.
What would you ask him? I don't know why you're breaking up. Alika, Khalil, you still there?
Sorry about that, sir, because I'm on the road.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
What would you ask Cristiano?
How did he make it?
How did he make it?
From a poor boy on the street to being a rich millionaire, like right now.
Okay.
And so popular.
Okay. All right. Some great questions. Alika, go ahead. Who would you interview?
Well, my one would be very different. She's a former athlete. Shoshana Magoon. I don't know if I pronounce her last name properly.
Magoon.
Magoon, yes. I wouldn't really have a question for her, but I would like to spend a day with her, like behind the scenes, watching how she works and approach people, not from a sports journalist perspective, but from just a normal person perspective.
Okay. I think we could probably arrange that. She was one of our presenters last season, and she joins us sometimes. That's cool. Thanks for that. Okay, I see Khalil and Devar's hands are still up. I'm not sure if that's for this question.
Yes, sir. I already know.
Okay.
So what I would do, I would rather ask one of like future stars or younger athletes, so someone like Kylian Mbappe or Lamine Yamal. I would ask them, where do you see yourself 5 or 10 years from now in the sport that you're doing, and what are some achievement that you want to complete?
Okay. Cool. These are all great answers. Anybody else wants to chime in? Be happy to hear them. Dylan, go ahead. Answer the question.
Okay, so I would interview Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, and I'd ask her, how do you stay so long in the sport while being able to compete with the youngsters who are coming up to be the best of the best?
Excellent question. That was something we could arrange as well. One day we're gonna have our athletes on there. But thank you guys. Those are all excellent responses. And today we're actually going to dive deep into just that. How do you create the live reporting and create engaging narratives? And we have a very, very special presenter. I'm going to do a little introduction. So his name, of course, you probably already know if you are a sports fan and you watch SportsMax or have been watching local sports coverage over the last 10 years, you know Ricardo Chambers. But here is what he's been up to. You know, he started in 2005 as a junior guest analyst for KLAS Radio. And then he had 3 years at KLAS from 2008 to 2011. He also did 5.5 years from 2012 to 2017 at Television Jamaica Sports Reporting. And he has covered commentary for a whole heap of events like schoolboy football, champs, the World Athletics Under 18 Championships, the Commonwealth Games, Olympic Games, Carifta Games, Test ODI and T20, as well as regional cricket. Currently, he hosts the Daily Sports Show on SportsMax TV, so you can see him every day around this time. Not on the air today, but he'll probably be back tomorrow. And so, without further ado, I am going to hand over to Ricardo. Ricardo, welcome. We're so really happy to have you, and please do tell them what I left off, if anything.
Might take the whole day. Andrew, thanks very much for having me. Thanks everyone for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. By the way, before I go any further, Brian, how old are you?
I turned 19 years old a month ago.
Oh, interesting. You don't get many 18 or 19-year-olds talking about Merlin Otti and being underappreciated. So that certainly caught my attention when you referenced Merlin Otti, because so many people believe that Jamaica's track and field greatness started in 2008 with Usain and Asafra and Melaine and Veronica and so on. But yes, Merlin definitely was one of the great ones, one of the greatest to ever do it. So to hear that from an 18 or a 19-year-old is quite interesting, I would say. All right, again, thanks very much for having me, guys. So today we're going to be talking about live reporting and creating engaging narratives. Before I get into the meat of the matter, though, I'm just going to ask those who are able to please enable your cameras. It does make for better viewing when I'm able to see you and interact with you that way. It is going to mostly be an interactive session, so I want you guys to participate as much as is possible. We're not leaving question and answers until the end of the segment, so if at any time throughout the presentation you want to ask a question, please go ahead, indicate, and we will. It's fine, by the way, if you cannot turn your camera on, but if you are in a position to do so, I am asking you to please do so once you are in a position to do so. So as I said, it's going to be an interactive session for the most part. So if at any point during the presentation you want to ask a question, just indicate and we will get to you. No issues there. And from time to time, I will just be picking random names that I see, and I will be calling on you just to participate. All right. So as I said, it's an engaging session, and at the end of the day, the more questions you ask, I think it's the better the conversation will be. All right. So we're all clear on that.
Crystal.
All right. Awesome. So let's talk about live reporting then and creating engaging narratives. First of all, let me say that I believe of all the things that we do in the media / journalism industry, the most difficult, I believe, is live reporting. And that's because you don't get a do-over. Once the camera rolls, it's time to go. You don't get to say stop. You don't get to say pause. You don't get to say roll 10 times. There's no second opportunity. You make a mistake and you have to find a way to fix it right there and then. The hope is that, of course, you will not make mistakes, but at the end of the day, we are all humans and mistakes will happen, and you have to be, and not just mistakes, like various things will happen during periods when you are on air live. So many different things. And I mean, we can go into 100 of them, but the point is, when they do, you have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to adjust. You have to be, what they'll say, quick on your feet, because you have to be able to respond to just about anything that happens in the scenario. So that's the first thing I want you guys to understand. And that's why I say that is the most difficult thing. When you're writing articles, for example, in some cases, you have days and weeks to write and check and recheck and ensure that this word is spelled correctly, ensure that this is the meaning of this word that you are using, ensure that everything is utilized in the correct context. Once the camera rolls in a live report, all of that is out the window. You have to be ready. All right, one of the things, in fact, the main thing I want to talk about today, because there are so many things I could talk about, guys, but the main thing I want to talk about is that thing called preparation. And the reason I want to talk about preparation is because I feel if you have this part down, then it will serve you well, not just in live reporting, but just about anything you do in the media industry. If you are well prepared, for the most part, that is 90% of your work done. Yeah. When you are in situations where you have to pivot, when you're in situations where you have to adjust, it is your preparation that is going to get you out of it. So one of the things, for example, with many individuals who do television or who do media generally, or they will do some type of live TV or live radio or whatever the case might be. Usually in the field, whenever you're doing live reports or whatever the case might be, you are told, hey, you will have 1 minute for this, or you will have 2 minutes for this, or whatever the case might be. And maybe you have 45 seconds worth of information or 1 minute worth of information. But then what happens when you're told in the middle of that report that, hey, you have to go for 3 minutes because we're having an issue and we can't leave you? What position does that leave you in? Do you just repeat yourself for the next 2 minutes given to you? Yeah. And so again, your preparation takes care of that in ensuring that if you are ever put in a situation like that, you can effectively pivot and handle yourself and get out of that situation. So here we go. Before I get into the meat of the matter, I have a question for you guys. And I tell you, if anybody answers this correctly, I am going to label you a genius from the start of this exercise, because you absolutely have to be a genius to get this one right. So the question is, you all aspire to one day be in the media industry, and at some point of your tenure in the media industry, have to do some type of live reporting. Yeah. So the question is, when does preparation start? When does your preparation for your first live opportunity begin? Who can answer that question? Jude. Wow, the hands are going up. Go ahead, Mr. Thompson.
I personally believe that if you haven't started from before, now would be a good time to start, because you never know when the opportunity will come up. So if you have your information prepared, then you should be able to do a decent live report.
Okay, so when does the preparation start?
Starts now.
Wow, you're a genius, my friend. You are a genius. Did anybody else have that answer? I feel like I kind of gave it away, you know? But yeah, well done, Jude. Yeah, the preparation starts now. And some individuals would say that the preparation has already started. So everything that you are doing now should help to prepare you for those opportunities when they come. Now, here is something I want to get into. For anything, as far as I'm concerned, that you do in this industry, and again, today we're speaking specifically to live reporting. We'll get to the engaging stories part in a short while, but just the live reporting aspect now and understanding the nuances of that. For me, I have coined that there are 3 phases of preparation. Yeah. And listen to this keenly. There are 3 phases of preparation. Phase 1 for me is the general phase. Now, what is the general phase? Who can tell me what the general phase is? Who can hazard a guess? Khalil? So just raise your hand and
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Khalil?
Yes, sir. Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't hear you properly.
Oh, so I'm saying, I thought you were raising your hand to answer the question as to what the general phase of preparation is or what it entails.
General phase of
All right,
preparation.
think about it, Khalil. Real Riley?
So that would be getting the core information first.
Getting the core information, not quite what I'm looking for. Who else? Let's see. Which other hand is up? Okay, Devar.
So general preparation would be like you generally preparing for an interview or even practicing for further interviews that you're going to do or plan to do.
Not quite. Let's try Alika. It looks like this one is the genius question, man. Alika.
Would it mean overall just preparing yourself personally for what is to come, whether it is something challenging or not, just preparing yourself personally for what is to come?
That is the closest I've heard so far. Let's try, is that Lily XT?
Yes, sir.
Can you hazard a guess as to what the general preparation phase is?
So the general preparation phase is like, so you decide what you're going to say and how you're going to do it. So you make sure that you don't make any silly mistakes. And so your live broadcast can go smoothly.
Not a bad answer, but not the answer I'm looking for. Brian, how about you? Mr. Merlinotti?
This is just, I guess, just throwing this out there, but would it relate to just being around the space, just observing others around you and how they operate?
That is a very good one. All right. That's a very good one, Brian. So let me stop there. So the general preparation phase is you as an individual soaking in every bit of information that you can. Everything that you do now is part of the general preparation phase. Going to school, learning the rules of the English language, that's part of the general preparation phase. Just watching football games or cricket matches or whatever sport you are interested in is part of the general preparation phase. Yeah. Learning how to change a car tire is part of the general preparation phase. It is just about anything you do in this life. Because here's the thing about the general preparation phase. You never know what knowledge you are going to need at a particular time when you are on air. Yeah? You never know when you're going to be doing an interview that someone is going to say something in that live interview and it draws you back to something that you read 10 years ago or something that you learned 10 years ago. And you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. I can ask an appropriate follow-up question now because I have that information. So the thing about the general preparation phase is that you are encouraged at this point where you're still in high school, you're not even in university yet, to learn as much as you can. and not just learn, but experience as much as you can, because ultimately that will help you as media practitioners, that will help you as journalists. The more you know as an individual is the better you are likely to be when you start practicing. So we're not even at close to start practicing yet. But what will happen is that as you continue this general preparation phase, which, by the way, is a never-ending phase of your life, once you're alive, you're in the general preparation phase. The thing about it is, when you now go to university, and let us say you go to university and you decide to study media, you decide to study journalism or whatever it is, then they will refine the knowledge that you know and will assist you in learning how to use it effectively in the space. Yeah, are we following? But without the knowledge, without the knowledge, there is nothing to fine tune. And that's one of the things. And it's one of the issues, like, for example, that we have, especially with young people who are coming in the industry, like the knowledge is very limited. Yeah. And that's a problem. Individuals don't read enough, don't understand enough about world issues, don't understand enough about different sports. And so when they come into the industry, there is a gap, which means that there was something wrong with that general preparation phase. All right. So phase one, general preparation phase, soak in as much as you can now, because all that information, I promise you, will come in handy at some point or another. And you might not see it now, but I promise you guys that once you get into the field and you start practicing and you start moving up and you start doing more work, you will see how it becomes more relevant, that you have more information. All right. Any questions on any of that before I move forward to the second phase of 3? Okay. All right. All good. So phase 2 is what I like to call the narrowed phase. Yeah. So this is where now you start, targeting specific areas that you are interested in. So for example, with me, I went to school and I studied journalism. I could have done news, but I decided I want to do sports. So that was my narrowed area. And even within sports, I have narrowed areas because I'm much more into track and field, cricket, tennis. And so my areas are narrowed in that way. So as you get more into the field now, and you will see the various opportunities that exist, you can start narrowing your focus a little bit more. But remember, that's fine, because your general preparation phase would have given you the basic knowledge on a wide cross-section of things. Yeah. And so now you start to narrow. Yeah. And you start to get deeper into particular areas, and you start to become more of an authority on specific areas. Yeah. So you continue to gather the information, but now you're going more in depth into very specific areas. And listen, I have a belief, right? And I don't care what anybody says. Individuals, I think, within this industry, especially in Jamaica and the Caribbean, will always say, I'm impressed with that individual because they can do 20 different sports. I promise you, if you are going to be really good at any area, you have to at some point specialize, because the truth is there is just not enough time for you to be great in this business at 20 different things. Yes, you can be okay. Sometimes you can be even a little bit above average in a lot of areas. But for me, in terms of being truly great, you have to be able to spend the time specializing and so on. So that second portion, that second phase is when we start to narrow. So we start to get a clearer understanding of the things that we're going to need. And then that third and final phase now is the specific phase. So this is when you know what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, where you're going to do it. So if it's a live report that includes an interview, if it's just a live report where you're talking about something that you have just seen, and now you start to prepare specifically for this. So you know that you're going to be covering sports day. What information do I need to give an effective report at the end of the sports day? So my news editor has said to me, you will have to give a 1-minute live report at the end of the sports day, or at the end of day 1 of champs, you'll have to give a 1-minute live report, or at the end of the cricket match, you will have to give a 1-minute live report. So now you start to dig into the specifics of the teams, the individuals, who are the favorites, who are the stars, who is likely to do well. And all that information is important so that when something happens, and if there's an upset, you can immediately pick up that there's an upset, because your preparation would have allowed you, your preparation would have already told you that, hey, this person is the favorite, this person is not expected to finish in the top 3. And now you have this person who wasn't even expected to make the semifinals, turning up and winning. So I know that's a massive upset, and you can articulate that in the moment, because that's the beautiful thing, as I say, about live reporting. And I want to throw live commentary in it as well, because, gosh, that's even harder, because at least with quote unquote live reporting, you still have time after the event or while the event is happening to think about what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. But as a commentator, you are responding to it as it happens. You don't get 10 minutes after the event is finished to go, okay, how do I put this together now? What do I say? Yeah. And so that for me is even more difficult, even more challenging. And it becomes even more important that your preparation is on point. And when you get to that specific preparation phase, now, as part of the specific preparation phase, one of the things I encourage as well is that you practice. Do we have anybody who plays sports in here? Brian, what sport do you play? What sport do you do?
I play basketball.
You play basketball. Do you walk around and just shoot?
I don't walk around and just shoot, but I think a lot of basketball players have this thing where they do basketball moves, just out the random, like you walk in by somebody and you Eurostep them for no reason. So things like that.
Yeah. Do we have Danje?
I play lacrosse.
You play lacrosse. Do you walk around and arbitrarily do lacrosse moves?
Dodging, yes, but I can't really shoot.
Okay. So when I was in high school, I played cricket in high school. And one of the things I always found with the cricketers, including myself, is that we would walk around and just randomly play cricket shots. And we'll do a thing like, and that was part of the practice. It's a similar thing with this industry, and I encourage that. If you are going to be doing a live report, or if you're going to be doing anything, it helps if you stand in front of the mirror and practice before you get out there. Yeah, because usually you have an idea as to what is going to happen. You might have somebody in studio who is going to throw to you and say, hey, we had this event at the National Stadium. Let's now go to Danje Harris for a live report. bam, and then you come up. You know that's going to happen. So you have time before that, days before, when you're at home, when you're in your room, get in front of your mirror and start practicing. How am I going to put this together? What am I going to say? Yeah, create some scenarios, some potential scenarios in your head and practice them, because it helps. So when you are in the position now, it makes it a lot easier. And not just days before. One of the things I would say as well, even just before you go on air. So you are 5 minutes away from going on air. Usually we have what we call an IFB. There's someone talking to you in the ears and they're telling you stand by, we're 5 minutes away, we're 4 minutes away. Even in that period, I would encourage that you are practicing, because I promise you that they can come to you and you totally freeze like, oh my God, what am I supposed to say again? And so the longer you practice is the easier it sticks. And the easier it is for you to execute when you get into that moment. I mean, think about athletes, for example. You ever see like hurdlers just before a race, especially like in the 100 hurdles or the 110 hurdles, and even the sprinters, like they'll sort of visualize, you know, what they're supposed to do. They'll repeat the rhythm of hurdling, and they'll keep doing that right up to the moment that they are told to get on their marks. It's no different in this industry. As much as you can, you want to be practicing. When I was a youngster, oh gosh, sometimes I'm sure people used to think I was crazy, but I was always practicing my commentary. So I would walk around at school and I was commentating because I wanted to perfect my craft. And so by the time I got my first opportunity to do commentary, I felt as if I had done this a million times. And the transition to doing it for real never felt like much of a transition for me, because I was like, wait, I do this every day. I've done this a million times at school, at home, whatever. I mean, when I was growing up and playing cricket, for example, I would always be doing commentary even while I was playing. And so, as I said, I mean, the only difference when I got my first opportunity was that I had an actual microphone in front of me, and know I was going to a mass audience. But nothing else about it felt different or new. And one of the things I remember people saying about me when I did, for example, like cricket commentary for the first time, and they were like, whoa, this kid sounds as if he's been doing this for years. Because as far as I'm concerned, I was doing it for years, but where nobody could hear or nobody could see, or few people could hear and few people could see. So that aspect of it is so important, that you practice all the way up to the point where you now have to do it. And that is all part of that specific preparation phase. And you can do that now. That part, even now, you can do it in the general preparation phase or in the narrowed preparation phase. But it's just that when you get to the specific preparation phase now, you know your topic, you know exactly what you are going to be doing. And so you are more specific with the type of information you are going to be disseminating, how you're going to be disseminating it. You will now have a much better idea of how much time you will have to disseminate all that information. And yeah, and so now that planning, that phase becomes significantly more specific. So those are the three phases. All right. Any questions before I move on from there?
So I see a question from Glitch. Can we specialize in different sports and switch focus every month or so? For example, we focus on hockey this month and then football another one.
So a lot of that depends on where you end up, right? Now, in Jamaica and most companies in Jamaica where at most companies in Jamaica where the focus is on writing and presenting sports news, then the expectation is that the more sports you are capable of writing and reporting on, is the better it is for that department. So let's take TVJ, for example. They have a nightly sportscast of like about 15-20 minutes, and they need to fill that every night. So yes, if you can go across sports, cricket, football, basketball, tennis, hockey, then that is great for you. If you are in other scenarios though, where and especially when it comes on to live reporting or live commentary or live analysis, you need to be an authority on it. So it can't just be that you know the basics. And the initial part is when you're introduced to media, when you're introduced to journalism, is that yes, you're likely expected to be a generalist. But as you go along, at some point, if you want to be great, if you want to really announce yourself, if you want to create a brand for yourself, then my suggestion would be that at some point you have to become an authority on something, and that would mean that there is some level of specialization. So I hope that answers that question. Any other questions before I move along?
Khalil has his hand up. Khalil, you had something to say? Or Alika? Alika had just put up her hand. Go ahead, Alika.
Good evening again. My question is, normally people would say that journalism does not make any sense, like yada yada. People have their negative comments. But my question to you, your first time like entering college and like doing journalism, like what were the thoughts going through your head like for the future to come for you? Like would you like say to yourself, okay, I'm gonna stay in journalism, or I'm just gonna try it out for 1 year, then switch course? Because that's the problem I'm having right now.
Okay, interesting question. So when I was about 12 years old, I had the opportunity to work as a guest on a live cricket broadcast, and that was regional cricket. And I remember during that period, I got a number of opportunities to be around cricket commentators and so on. And my mentor at the time, his name is Mark Nita. He's now president of the Melbourne Cricket Club. And he said to me, what do you want to do? Ultimately, what do you want to do in the future? And I said, I wanted to be a journalist. I was about 12 years old. And, he kind of sighed and I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And he's like, well, I hope you love it. And I hope you have a passion for it, because the money isn't that great. For me, because I had the passion for it, initially at least, the money was never an issue. And when I came into journalism, and of course I started before I'd gotten a university degree, the money wasn't great, but I didn't know that, because for me it was about creating a brand for myself, building my name, because I believe that ultimately the remuneration would come and I would be okay. And I felt that this was the area I wanted to be in. So I never had any issues deciding whether I wanted to do journalism or not. I mean, that path was always clear in my head. I always knew that was what I wanted to do. I have seen a number of individuals, though, who are unsure if this is the path they want to take. And yes, sometimes they start with other courses and then switch to journalism. Sometimes they start with journalism and then switch to other courses that they decide. The question I would ask you, though, is why you are having mixed feelings about whether this is the industry that you want to get into. Because I think the reason is important. For some people, it's money. For other people, it's other things.
Okay, thank you.
So what is it for
Oh,
you?
I thought the question was just like rhetorical. Um, why I would can you repeat the question, please? Not to get it confused.
Yeah, why is it that you have mixed feelings about whether this is the industry that you want to enter?
I would think maybe it's because I'm not the type of person. I have a passion for it, but maybe because I'm not the type of person to stick to one thing. So I have
Oh,
more than one career that I would want to try out.
oh, I
That's it.
see. Well, one of the things I'll say to you is that within media, there are many different jobs, many different positions that you can take up that can keep your interest going. When I was at KLAS, I was a presenter reporter, so I read the sports news on radio. I did live commentary. Then I moved to TVJ, and I pretty much did something similar. And then I wanted to do more production of live events. And that's how my switch from TVJ to SportsMax happened, because SportsMax allowed me that opportunity to do more production work, which is more of the behind the scenes work. And then once I felt like I'd conquered that, I wanted a different challenge. And so I started presenting again. Commentary has always been that. So the point I'm making in there are a lot of different areas that can keep you engaged within the media industry. So if you're worried about being bored within the industry, I don't think you necessarily have to worry about that too much, especially if you are thinking about being great. If you're thinking about just being okay, then sure, you can move around from place to place, whatever. But if you truly want to be great, at some time you're gonna have to sit and spend the time to create the type of legacy that you want. So yeah, that would be my response to that. Unless it is that there are some other areas that I feel like I want to do all these other areas. One of the things I will say is it's possible, because you have people who do media and do other things. Just ensure that the things are compatible. And when I say compatible, meaning the other things that you're going to be doing, if you want to be great in this, just ensure you'll still have the time to spend to put in the work in both things. Or the two things complement each other so much that a lot of the work that you will do will benefit both areas. So there is also that as well. So let us say you became a coach, but at the same time, let's say you became a football coach, but at the same time you want to do football commentary or football analysis, like Neville Bell, for example. Compatible, because everything that you do in football will assist you as a commentator or as an analyst. Similar if it was track and field and doing some type of media. You have individuals who work in media who also do as freelancers in most cases, but who also do PR for companies and so on. So those things are compatible within the industry and can work, and each can help the other. I see something here for Princeton Hunter. So like Oral Tracy is the sports commentator for TVJ. Would he get to choose a specific sport in which he speaks on, or would he have to speak on all sports? So a few things. So today our focus is live reporting. Oral Tracy does not do live reporting. So even his sports commentary that you see nightly on TVJ is not a live product. That's recorded and presented at that time. So that's the first thing to know. But in Oral Tracy's position, what he does are opinion takes, essentially, and he has the ability he chooses whatever he wants to talk about. Glitch E for practicing for interviews, can we have a list of general questions we ask every athlete, and then based on who is in my team they can ask a question of their own? One of the things I'll say, I am not a fan of these general questions asking every athlete, every athlete, sorry, because every athlete has a story, you know. Yeah. Dylan's story is different from Donjay's story. Donjay's story is different from Alika's story. Alika's story is different from Andrew's story. So why you want to ask the same question to Andrew that you're going to ask to Alika? That's lazy work. Your preparation should dig into Andrew's history or Alika's history or Brian's history to ensure that when you sit down and have a conversation with them, when you sit down, and by the way, I don't even want you guys to use the term interviews. I want you to use the term conversation, because that's what you have. It's a conversation with the athlete or whoever it is that you're going to be speaking with. And so when you sit down to have that conversation, why am I going to have a conversation with Brian about Sammy Sosa when Brian has absolutely no interest in baseball? I should be talking to Brian about Kobe. Yeah, because based on my research, that's where his interest lies. And so that's part of the preparation as well, that when you do the preparation, you get a much better idea of the questions that you should ask. Yeah. So I shouldn't be listening to Brian's interview and the questions I hear you asking Brian sounds like the same generic questions that you asked Alika last week. And if I pull up 10 of your interviews, I hear the same questions every single time, because they are just some generic, what did you do today? How do you see yourself in 5 years? How did you get started? And I just keep hearing the same questions over and over. No, man, get to what is unique about the athlete, about the individual that you're having that conversation with. And your preparation, the work that you do beforehand, should take care of a lot of that. Brian, prepare the comedy report for me, because I want you guys to see this piece. Now, it's for comedic purposes, but there is a lot of truth in this. Any questions coming out of that? No? Okay, all good. So let us talk a little bit about creating the engaging narratives part. You see, everything I've spoken about in terms of the preparation, that is what will allow you. Yeah, you're very much right, Princeton. That is what will allow you to create engaging narratives. How do you create engaging narratives without having the information to do so? It's impossible. Have you ever watched, let's talk about track and field. Have you ever watched a track and field meet and the commentator is only telling you what you can already see? That A is leading, B is in second, and C is in third, which you can already see on screen, but there is no additional information that goes with that. Yeah, there's no story. There's no story. Understand this, that when you are put in that position, every athlete has a story. Every event has a story. Every venue has a story. And it is your responsibility to put that in a package that engages your audience in such a way that when it's over, they feel fulfilled. And there is no one way to do that, because we're all different. Yeah, we're all different. Now, one of the best persons at doing this, as far as I'm concerned, in our industry is we have a lot of football fans in here, right? Have you ever heard about Peter Drury? Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, man. They call him the point of football commentary. He is amazing. Now I want us to look at, we're going to look at a Peter Drury preparation video where he speaks about his preparation to do a football game. So everybody take a look at this.
Okay, so here we are. This is all of the homework I do ahead of a game. Notes on every player, and then the teams and the coaches and their form and recent selections. A little bit on the Klopp-Pochettino rivalries, the recent history of the fixture, much more. I've got a little bit on Liverpool's number 9s here because we might get a new one of those in Darwin Núñez if he's involved. All the players who've left, which for Chelsea is a long list. And other little bits and pieces too. Okay, so here we are.
Right.
This is all of the home.
There we have it. You, yes, handwritten too. You see how much work he puts into doing one football match? Yeah, that's the type of work that we're talking about. That's the type of preparation that we're talking about. Yes, he has an entire book. Yeah, page upon page of notes of potential scenarios within the game. Here is the thing though, it's one thing to have the information, but even more critical, it is how you utilize the information. Because do you know that you can have so much information that you can ultimately bore people with the information that you have? Like if you're just throwing stats at people without context, just throwing information at people without context, then they get bored. So now the next phase of it is that you have to find an engaging way of presenting that information. Princeton says this is why comedy comes in sometimes. Ronaldo's return. Let's have a look at this video. Now I know the true football fans will remember this and would probably have heard this before, because this was when Cristiano Ronaldo returned to Manchester United. And this was his first game, and this was Peter Drury's introduction. Now, I just want you to listen to how he has put everything into this beautiful, engaging package. And when you finish watching and listening to this, you're going to feel as if you want to watch this football game. Roll.
Madeira, Manchester, Madrid, Turin, and Manchester again.
Pause there for me. Pause there for me. Can anybody tell me the meaning of the cities that Peter referenced at the top of that piece? Because I want everybody to get a full understanding of what is happening here and kind of why it is so special. So can anybody tell me the meaning of the cities he just referenced? If you can go back a little, Andrew, and play it again.
Manchester, Madrid, Turin, and Manchester again.
Pause. Yeah. Can anybody tell me, Real Riley?
So basically, he stated the cities, basically Manchester, Madeira, you name it. Instead of stating the clubs, he stated the city, which should mean he's referring to not just the club, but the culture, a community. So he's basically summarizing
what is special about those cities?
He has been there. Ronaldo has been there.
There you go. That's the part I'm looking for. Yes. Perfect. Spot on. All right, Andrew, roll again.
Wreathed in red, restored to this great gallery of the game, a walking work of art, vintage, beyond valuation, beyond forgery or imitation. 18 years since that trembling teenager of touch and tease first tiptoed onto this storied stage, now in his immaculate maturity, CR7 reunited. Madeira, Manchester.
Pause. Yeah. So you see how Peter Drury has taken all the information about Cristiano Ronaldo and just made it into this wonderful poetic story. That's what he's done. He could have said, Cristiano Ronaldo left from Manchester United to go to Real Madrid, to Juventus, and now he's back at Manchester United. But would that have the same effect? Would that have the same impact as to how he put that together? I want you to also hear another piece that Drury did. There you go. Glitchy says it drew my attention. The athlete's story was told in a little snippet. Beautiful. The Manolas commentary. Now, this one is beyond special. And we will speak to why it is beyond special. In fact, after we play it, if there's anybody who understands it and who can tell me why this is so special, let's have a conversation on it. Roll.
Was not meant to happen. This could not happen. This is happening. Barcelona extraordinary. 8 minutes from elimination. And Di Francesco does not know where to go. Iniesta does not know where to look. It is a Greek from Mount Olympus who has come to the 7 hills of Rome and pulled up a miracle.
Yeah. Does anyone understand the context in which that piece of commentary was done? Let me see. I see Devar.
What I got from that, I saw the score 3-0, Roma at 3 and Barcelona at 0. So what I can understand from that is when he said Barcelona from elimination, which means they got knocked out of a certain tournament, and I think that no other team had done it the previous season or this season before, and they had done it, which nobody expected them to do, and nobody predicted that they would have been doing it.
Okay, so let me ask you this question to try and help you get to where I'm going, right? The first line, he says, Roma have risen from their ruins. Do you understand the background or the history of why that line is so significant, and why he starts with that line?
Yes, sir. I don't know exactly, but it could have been that Roma was not having a good season or a good time in that particular year, and that they had proved themselves great again by in that certain game.
Okay. No. Is there anybody else who wants to attempt answering that?
I think Brian.
Not Brian yet.
Yeah.
I feel like Brian has probably read about this and so has an unfair advantage. Yeah, Alika?
Would it be...
Hold on, Alika. Let me go to somebody I've not heard from yet. Whoa.
I saw Glenisha put up her hand.
Kamaya Smith.
Right.
Yeah, Kamaya, which school are you from?
Oh, I'm from Wilmer's Girls.
Okay.
Okay, so what I could see from the video and hear from the video, I saw that they were kind of really spotlighting the person that really made the goal. So I think maybe it was more focused on the person that was playing more than the goal itself.
No. All right. Can anybody tell me Roma have risen from their ruins? What is that line in reference to?
That's basically referring to ancient Roman history. Regarding
Some bright
that,
spark. Who is that?
that's why
Real Riley.
that's why it's so close, Roma and Rome. So he worded that so perfectly. And
Yeah.
he even referred to a player as Roman God per se.
Yes. So let me read this piece that I have. To fully appreciate this piece of commentary, you need to at least have a basic understanding of the fall of the Roman Empire. It is clear that while Jury might not have prepared the day before or knew that Manolos would score and Roma would unbelievably score 3 goals, that his knowledge of the history of Rome allowed him in that moment to create a story and create a narrative that captivated the world over. That's why that piece of story, that piece of commentary is so special, because Drury has used his knowledge, which probably happened during his general preparation phase when he was in school learning about Roman history and the fall of the Roman Empire. Yeah. And he has used that knowledge in this moment to create a parallel between the goal and the moment of Rome coming from the dead, essentially, because that's what they did. They came from the dead. Yeah. And so he creates that parallel with the fall of the Roman Empire. And that first line, Roma have risen from their ruins. Just state that to your teacher of literature or your teacher of English, and they would give Drury a 10 out of 10 for this piece. It is amazing. And so that's the thing. So the preparation is the first and most basic part of doing any live piece on television or on radio. It's the most basic part, the preparation. And then once you have the knowledge, it's about learning how to use it. And that will come over time. For any of us to get to the level of Peter Drury, and to be honest, most of us won't, but we can try and we can aim for it. But to get there, it will likely take time. But where it all starts is that we have to get the knowledge. We have to soak up everything at this stage while we have the opportunity to, because you see the next thing, you see when you get into this industry and you start practicing, everything moves quickly, you know. Everything moves so fast that you're like, wait, I don't have as much time to do all of that whole heap of reading anymore. Most of the things now, like sometimes you'll feel like you're only in the specific preparation phase. So now while you can is the opportunity to just learn and read as much as you can, gather as much information and knowledge as you can at this stage, because ultimately it will assist you going forward. All right. Yeah, we've been going over an hour now. Let me just open the floor for just about any questions for a few minutes before we close out.
Good evening. Question. If there was a sport, like a sport you have never played before, have no knowledge, well, kind of have background knowledge, like which sport would you want to like do a commentary on?
Oh, that I would want to do commentary on that I have never done commentary on. I don't think that sport exists. Oh my God. I have done, I don't think there's a sport. No, because like I've done commentary on so many sports, right? Even for the Olympics last year, I did badminton. I've done netball. I did basketball once. Definitely didn't like that. Hated it. But that was one time, and hopefully never again.
Yes, sir.
Have you done commentary on pickleball? I am a tennis player and I hate pickleball, and I will never do commentary on pickleball. I am strongly against it. And if I could rip up every pickleball court in this country, I would, and build tennis courts.
What?
That's right. I hate that pickleball players and courts are taking over our tennis spaces. It is wrong, and I shall fight on behalf of all of tennis.
I'm a huge pickleball fan, but it's not about me.
If you told me that a few weeks ago, I would not have come today.
I have a couple hands up, so I'm going to go through the hands up, and we can go through them quickly, and we're over time. So Glitch, you have your hand up. You have a question? Okay, it's gone. Riley, go ahead and ask your question.
Given that your time is limited in this industry, how do you manage your time?
Whoa. No, thankfully, I've had the opportunity over the last 3 years to build a really good team around me. So the team that I have at SportsMax, I try to guide them as much as possible. And the better they get is the more work I throw on them, which lightens my load and gives me an opportunity to focus on the bigger things.
That answers your question, really?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Brian, I see you're next. And Glitch, I'm coming back to you.
Yeah, over the hour, you've mentioned a lot of commentators. You've said, you've talked about Neville, Peter Drury, a lot of commentators, you've given them their praises, and you said you're really passionate about commentary. So I just wonder, like, how important is it to leave a legacy, on your space in sports media? How important is it to you that in 10, 20 years, maybe after you've retired, people are talking about how well you used to call a game, anything like that?
Kid, how old do you think I am? 10 years, retired. Yeah, so no, on a serious note though, for me, that's extremely important, and it has become more important for me as I've grown in the industry. And especially because for me, I'm extremely passionate about track and field commentary specifically. And I want that when I'm done, and maybe even before I'm done, and when people ask, hey, who is the best track and field commentator you've ever heard, that my name comes up in that conversation every single time. And that's personally one of the things that really drives me, that I want to be considered among the very best in track and field commentary, and not just in Jamaica, but right across the world. Those are the conversations I want my name to be part of. And I think more than anything else, that's the legacy I want to leave. I want that in 10, 15, 20 years, when individuals want to do seminars on commentary, that my name is among the first that comes up in this region, as I said, right across the world. So yeah, and as I said, that really drives me, and it pushes me to work harder every day and every year, specifically in that area. And as I said to you guys earlier, don't let anybody trick you. If you're going to be really good at this, you will have to put in the work. It does not come easy. If you want to be ordinary, then yes, minimal work. If you want to be great, if you want to be better than everyone else and anyone else who is out there, then you will have to do a level of work that is more or smarter in some cases than everyone, anyone else out there.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. I'm going to move to Dylan. Dylan, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. So good evening again. You've had, well, in my opinion, the greatest track commentator of all time is the late great Hubert Lawrence. You've had many experiences with him, I'm sure. Carifta 49 in Jamaica and Carifta 50 in Bahamas. Were there any specific things he did before a live broadcast that you observed and maybe you used it?
Yeah, so one of the things, by the way, I mean, you speak about Hubert. So I worked with Hubert for the first time, probably at Champs when I was at KLAS Radio. And then when I went to Television Jamaica in 2012 and did Champs with them for the first time in 2013, Hubert was part of the TVJ team. And when I came to SportsMax, he also worked on several events locally. SportsMax did the digital Grand Prix series some years ago, Central Champs, Western Champs, Corporate Area Champs, Eastern Champs, and we did Gibson Relays as well, and Hubert was on many of those panels. But yeah, Hubert was a very meticulous person, especially in his preparation. So one of the things he did, which is very important in preparing for track and field, is that Hubert was at a meet every single weekend. So he was getting to know the athletes, not just by name, but by face. He was getting information that would not be otherwise available elsewhere. So one of the things he would do, so Hubert knew that based on where we are in Jamaica right now, after a 4x4 race or a 4x8 race, he's not going to get the splits of the individual athletes anywhere. So he would go to the meets and he would take the splits himself. And so when Hubert came to our broadcast, he was coming with information that nobody else had. When Hubert could tell you that Samuel Curry of Jamaica College split 149 at Western Relays, he's the only one that has that information because he's the only one that went, sat, did the work to do the recordings himself. And I mean, that was extremely special about him. I mean, I saw him, for example, Hubert would leave his house at 6 o'clock in the morning to drive to a meet in St. Elizabeth. And then he's leaving that meet by 3 o'clock to go to the National Stadium to catch the end of the meet that is there. That's the sort of dedication he had to his craft. And yeah, I think over time, a lot of those things, I mean, I think what Hubert did for me more than anything else was to get me, because I always had the work ethic. I was always willing to put in the work. But what Hubert did for me was to get me to fully understand how much work I needed to do. And so, yeah, I mean, it was amazing working with him. I also really enjoyed working with him as an analyst, maybe more than anything else, because I felt as if we complemented each other more than anybody else I've worked with, in all honesty. So it was kind of always special working with him.
Wow, big up Hubert. I think that was Dylan. Devar, you have question?
All right, so knowing that you have done commentary for years now, are there any specific persons that you've been doing it from day one, or trust them from day one, or like they've been there with you when you first started doing it?
Whoa, I've I've worked with so many different individuals, right? Because I was at KLAS and then TVJ. So I wouldn't say that there's any one particular individual. I mean, the person who I probably worked with the most was Hubert, because wherever I worked with him when I was at KLAS, I worked with him when I was at TVJ, and I worked with him since I came to SportsMax. So he was the most consistent, I would say.
All right, thanks for that. Glitch, you had your hand up from the beginning.
Yes, good evening. About the comedy.
Which school are you from?
I'm from Wilma's Boys.
Oh wow, the Wilmarians have it tonight.
All right. So my question is about the comedy. So would it be encouraged for us to be a bit comedic with the athletes? Because I think that for especially for Wilmarian athletes, it would allow them to open up to share their story from when they started from day one more. So is it encouraged?
So I encourage you to be yourself. But and if you are that type of individual, then fine. I also encourage you to, as much as possible, read the room, because there are some athletes who will be open to that, and will be very happy to see that side, and will lighten up with that side. But there are also other athletes who are just really serious and down to business, and sometimes you just have to make an assessment of what is appropriate given who you are having a conversation with. And sometimes it also comes down to what the conversation is about and the seriousness of the conversation. But yeah, as generally I would say that, there's nothing wrong with comedy, once it is within particular boundaries and you're not going overboard and offending anyone. Because sometimes as well, some things that we think are jokes are not quite so. And especially in this modern age, a lot of things that we would joke about in the past and it would be funny is now being deemed as offensive. Athletes and players and coaches and just about a lot of individuals in the sporting fraternity are starting to take offense to a lot of them. Just the other day I was watching a tennis tournament, and there was, I think, a pre-match interview, and the presenter tried to make a joke, and I think it was a sexual joke of some sort, with the player, and the player was like, you know what, I'm not talking to you, and he just walked away. So you have to be very careful, especially in this day and age, the type of jokes you run and so on. But nothing is wrong with comedy as a general rule.
Oh, that was an excellent
Okay,
answer.
so thank you.
Thanks, Glitch. Glenisha, go ahead.
Good night. Thank you. It wasn't
Good night.
it wasn't
Oh, we
I don't
sing
quite really have. Her name is Gabriel, by the way. From the videos that we've seen with Peter Drury, I've identified that he really uses this technique of bringing in more general knowledge in different industries, like in the Ronaldo one, he brought in some arts, and that would really help to teach others out there more about the sport, or help them understand the history or where he's coming from. And then with the ancient Roman history, he would help those who know about history to understand the game more and where he's coming from. So that's a technique I've really noticed there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's excellent. Goes back to Ricardo's first point about general knowledge. Your preparation starts now. I like that. And the last question I'm going to take, Riley, I see you have your hand up. I think it was from 4, if I'm not correct. Let me know. But Christian McTavish, sorry. Go ahead.
Good night.
Which school are you from, Christian?
Oh, Homer Strauss.
Oh, wow. There are only Wolves people here. Go on, Christian.
I wanted to ask if there are some general topics or areas that we could educate ourselves on in our own time that would benefit us when we're like reporting.
At this time of your development?
Yes.
Everything. And that's where I started. Learn as much as you can. Have a basic understanding of as many things as you can that is in life.